Hi, this is going to be a little different from the other videos that I've recently put up, but I feel this is so important. I'm going to be heading this up as I am one of the divine feminines who are going through this experience right now of either connecting or reconnecting with the divine masculine. And this is such a you could call it excruciating experience and also an amazing experience. But I feel like there's so many of us out there going through the same experience, and this may help some of the others if at least one of us starts to talk about this. Mine's maybe a very strange story, because as I read some of the readings that are coming through, it's really interesting. Lots of different ideas coming through the different readings as well. And I've learned to stay really with a few of the readers who are telling my story to a large extent. And I'm a Libran, and a lot of this has been about the Libran divine feminine. And my divine masculine is a Cancerian. And I'm going to start from the beginning. What has actually made me do this is when I left England. I live in Mexico now. When I left England 2.5 years ago, I left with one suitcase, one laptop bag, and a small rucksack of food to last me on the long journey. And I can't believe when I went through, I was looking for something in my cupboard today, and there's various small pieces of paperwork in there. And then I realized just how much of the paperwork, the channelings that I received over the years that never went into the books, particularly channelings on free energy that I was doing for a man called John, who was a friend of mine, an ex of a friend of mine as well. But he died a few years ago, and I hadn't even realized that when I grabbed this whole huge bundle of heavy paperwork and put them in the bottom of the one suitcase I was bringing, I didn't realize how much I brought. But it's really rung true for me on that channeling that I really have to put that out, because I was given amazing information about free energy, because John was absolutely obsessed with free energy, and him and a few of his friends were doing all sorts of experiments. And they decided, when they found out that I could channel, that maybe it was a good idea for John to come over and have a session with all the problems they were coming up against. And I have all the paperwork on that, even though he passed over, I think maybe a year ago, maybe a year ago now. And we both had access to the material. I printed off 2 copies, so he had one and I had one. And it's really interesting material. So I'm definitely going to be doing some videos about that. But when I was going through, I found this story that I wrote about the beginning of the connection that I had with this divine masculine. And I actually wrote it and then typed it out on a manual typewriter. So you can imagine this is at least 30 years ago. And when we first met, it was 40 years ago. This year, I think it is 39 or 40 years. And it's a very faint manuscript. I'm wondering now whether I'll actually be able to read it all the way through. But it's only one. I only wrote one part, which is about 8 double-line spacing pages, because when I got to the end of that, I remember thinking, then the conflict began, because even though I was on a spiritual path, my counterpart here was not, and I was the one that introduced him to meditation and spirituality. And there was conflict that went on for, again, a short while. And we then parted ways, him leaving the country that I'm in, not that I'm in now, but England. And this is 39 years ago. And what I'm going to tell you, I also found, before I go on, I also found the words of a song that I wrote. And I think, again, this is on a manual typewriter. And if you know anything about what we typed all those years ago on manual typewriters, they fade terribly. Why didn't somebody tell us this? Because I can hardly read the first sort of half a chapter, which was called The Two Doves. But I'm going to attempt to read that. But the song that I wrote with a chorus in between each verse was in about, I think this was the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. So that also is like at least 30 years old. And that is stronger print, thank goodness. But the original, the story that I must have penned maybe sometime before that, so that I didn't forget the details of that first meeting. And I don't know whether people understand the magic. I don't think if somebody told me some parts of my story, I would believe it. I really don't think I would believe it if I had not experienced it. Even though right now in my life, having gone through decades of working with all the modalities really, to do with healing and awareness and consciousness. I mean, I've even had things manifest absolutely in front of my eyes. So I have a lot of phenomena behind me. But the magic that you experience when you have a divine connection is beyond reason, really, in every way. And I'm going to tell you one of the things. We were on a visit to London. I was going to see an astrologer that somebody had told me about, this amazing astrologer. So I had to travel on a train for an hour. And my counterpart at the time came with me. And we had to meet somebody. And I think it was because it was difficult to find this astrologer's premises. She did a deep level of astrology. I can't remember what she called it now. It may have been spiritual astrology or something like that. But she was going to meet us at a railway station or a tube station so that she could take us on the last part of the journey. And when we got to this one entrance coming out of the tube station, she wasn't there. So we waited a while, and then my counterpart decided to walk right around the circle of the tube station. And he walked down one side and then up the other, and I could watch him walking back up. And as I was looking into the tube station to see if she arrived, I saw this couple, this woman, come running out of the tube station towards her partner, her lover. And he was standing there with this bouquet of amazing flowers, and she just ran into his arms. And as I'm watching my counterpart walk back up the hill, and I've just seen this behind me, and I just turned around and I thought, my goodness, that was just amazing. And then suddenly my counterpart vanished from off the pathway. And I thought, well, where's he gone? And he came into vision again a few moments later, holding a bunch of pink roses in a bouquet. And I mean, I just couldn't believe what was happening before my eyes. But what had obviously happened to him, I don't even know whether we spoke about what happened because I was so shocked. But he had caught my vision and went into, that was when I realized the magic in these relationships, which are just beyond reason, because it was total telepathy there, or a visionary style of telepathy, wasn't it? I don't remember me telling him what had happened. I might have been embarrassed about it at the time. The other thing about this story is that those roses that I took home with me when we finished the trip to London, which I may tell you more about because it's all a fascinating journey, but they lasted for 3 weeks and they didn't rot or die. They dried perfectly. And I just couldn't believe what was happening. I mean, they were still in water and the stems were just normal and the heads of the flowers dried perfectly, like you would take time and use different processes to dry them. They dried as the heads on the plant. And I eventually took them off and put them in a bowl, which was, again, I thought, how did that happen? That goes beyond nature. That goes beyond science. Anyway, the thing about our visit to London was I was going to see this astrologer. She never arrived at the station, or whoever was going to show us. I'm pretty sure it was her herself. And we could not find the place that I was supposed to visit. So we went and had a meal and we went home. After he left the country and I never saw him again, I remade the appointment, because when I phoned the woman, she said to me, I have your money in advance. We will do it again. And at this appointment, she started off this appointment with not talking to me. I walked in the room and sat down, and she'd done my astrological chart. But she then handed me about 6 different astrological drawings, where all the houses and, I'm not an astrologer, but all the houses and all the things were planned out on these sheets of paper. And I thought, why is she giving me these? And she said, I want you to look at these 6 astrological charts. They're all different people, and you're in there. Your chart is in there as well. And she said, listen, I just want you to tell me what you feel. I don't want you to think about this. I want you to tell me what you feel about each one. So I quickly went into that state, which wasn't that familiar to me at the time. I had started working with a few people intuitively, which I felt was intuitively, but I wasn't really totally immersed into it at that point, although I meditated every day. And I meditated for a year, 2 hours a day, just before this point. So I was pretty on the ball with my intuition. But being thrown into this situation was quite shocking. But she told me afterwards why. And it was because what she picked up about my chart and what I would be doing in the future. But I just went through these charts and just spoke to her very openly about what I felt the people were like. And she never commented on it. She did comment on showing me the one that I picked, the one that was mine, that I said, well, I thought it looked a bit chaotic. So that was, it was like really interesting. And then she explained to me, and she said to me, I knew then why she never met us at the railway station, why none of this was revealed to me while this twin flame relationship was in its beginnings, because she said to me, you are going to learn through a lot of different men. And I just felt like my heart was, this was only a few weeks after my counterpart had left the country. And I was recovering from that, which I may also talk about too. But she said, yes, you have to learn. And then she went through, and she was very strong. She never smiled once through this whole reading. She was very disciplined, and she knew that she had to teach me what the way needed to be. It was the most heavy and most accurate reading I ever had, I think, in my life all those years ago. And she said, you are going to learn through relationships. And that was the worst thing that anybody could have ever told me. I felt, when I left her, I felt a dread, and I felt totally suicidal. And I went straight to the train station to get a train home, which was like an hour's journey. And when I got on the train, I was sitting on a seat with a seat opposite me. And there was this man that was opposite me. Now, I'm calling him a man. I don't think he was actually of this world. I think he was what do you call them? There's a word that people talk about, and it's called a pop-in, or I can't remember, but it's something like that. You'll know what I mean, all you spiritual people out there. And I just sat there, and I knew this man was holding my energy, because I really felt like I could just jump off that train, because I had not healed this parting from my divine masculine. I had not healed it yet totally. I had not. That would take some time. And I needed to understand how I was going to do it, which I did. I went through a whole thing. But anyway, he was on this train until I think 2 or 3 stops before I got off. And when he got off, I knew he had grounded he never spoke a word. He was an elderly man, and there was an energy just coming off him the whole time. And I walk in, I've remembered what they call them. I never understood this until this happened to me. And I knew he was there for me. He was there so that I could sustain this information and that I could go on. And so that was good, because I understood the reading on an intellectual level, on an understanding comprehension level. It was just hitting me on a heart and emotional level. But what I knew about dealing with this, when you have a split from a divine masculine, when you go through that period that you need to be alone, because I'm understanding that so much more by listening to some of the great people on the YouTube channels, actually, who really know about the divine masculine and divine feminine journey and what that entails. But you need to know how to deal with that. And I was already working. I ran a center, a healing center, a center for intuitive living, eventually in this 3-story building. And I ran it for 9 years, just after this time. And I knew that I could not close my heart. That is the normal thing people do for a while. They close their heart. I could not do that, because if I did that, I could not work intuitively with these clients. Now, I just knew that. I knew it wouldn't work. Not for me. It might work if you were just doing a normal job, but I wanted to carry on my spiritual journey. So I began to heal it and forgive and do a lot of amazing work. I'd already gone through this a year before on the forgiveness journey with my partner, because I was living with a man and had 3 children. And I had a huge betrayal from this man. I had no idea that he had betrayed me for the last 2 years, actually. I think even more than that, it might even have been 4 years. But I knew that I did not want the normal break in a relationship where you just hate the person, you deny them access to the kids, you have arguments all the time. So already being like in a therapeutic job with my clients, I worked with Bach flower remedies, healing the states of emotion, mind, all sorts of things there. And I worked intuitively with the Bach flower remedies by dowsing them blind. So I did this for myself with that relationship. So I knew how to do the forgiveness. And I managed to have a friendship, an ongoing relationship with that partner right up until this point in time, where I had to heal what I felt. It wasn't down to, me getting him to do anything. It was me. I had to have no resentment so that my kids could live between the two of us, have a mother and a father, and not have arguments. I'm not saying I perfected that. I remember there was a couple of times when I was really angry about things, but it really worked in there. So I knew that side of it. So I started doing this with my counterparts so that I could carry on with an open heart for my clients. But what happens when you do that? I think this is the right way. But what I will add here is you carry that energy. You carry that energy and that magnetic pull. It never left me. And now I'm going to go quickly on now, because there's times we met up occasionally in between. For the first 5 years, he would come back to his hometown, blah, blah, blah. But it never worked because I was on a completely different path and I could not go with any betrayal or any negative behavior. It had to be really the spiritual way or nothing. So we did have interactions off and on, very occasionally, like once in 2 years, and then maybe once again, and there may be 3 or 4 happenings. But if we go now on down the line, me having that energy, me holding that energy, I had no idea what he did. I used to hear occasionally from his mother, what he was doing, because I had treated most of his family over the years, being a therapist and a reader, actually, at the time, and a healer. But, so I knew that he got married. I knew that he had relationships after that and all sorts of things, but we never had a connection. But there was a resonance for me which never left. There was a knowledge that this was a connection that we would retrieve. And after the first reading, the astrology reading, I'm trying to think how long after that, maybe a couple of years after that, I had a friend of mine was going for a normal card reading, and she wanted me to go with her because she was a bit afraid, and she knew that I did readings myself. So I went with her, and then decided to have a reading with this very elderly lady. And she said to me in this reading, immediately, she came up with all sorts of real accurate predictions of where I'd been and what I'd done. And these were to do with my travels abroad. And all sorts of things. And she had such accuracy. She really got me believing what she was saying. And then she said, you have this relationship, she said, and it's always going to be there. She said, you're not together in person. And then she said to me, you will be apart for a very long, long time. That's really not what you want to hear. This was maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, and about 36 years ago now. And I remember coming out of there and I said, but how long? How long? And she said, a long time. And then she said to me, you'll be okay. You're always going to look quite young, which I find quite funny because she knew what I was thinking. Oh, my God, when you say very long, long time. And then I said to her, but what will happen then? And she said, she looked at me really startled and she said, it will all be good. It'll be okay. And I said, but how will that end? I mean, I was so used to endings because what the astrologer told me was, you're going to learn through a lot of different relationships, and that is so true, until I put an end to it, because I decided that I was going to go celibate and not have any more relationships, which is a long time, actually, that I did that. And I said, but what? What are you saying? And she said, it will end naturally. Like both of us passing over, but that we would be together. So again, it was confirmation for me that what I felt was right. You can't end these things. It's an energy magnetic connection to your soul. Who can end your soul? And I knew that so well, that it was a soul connection. I've told you just one thing really about what happened to us at the railway station, but there were many others that happened over a period of months that were just mind-blowing and on an energetic level, which again enabled me to teach those things and teach the availability of those things. And I've actually worked with many, many people who have had those dramatic soul connections over the years, and I've really been able to help because I understood it, even though I wasn't actually with my counterpart here. But the journey is not an easy one, and you really do have to deal with it on the higher level. I'm just going to culminate this, and maybe I'll do another video where I actually read this, because I'm thinking I don't know whether I can read it. I might read the song that was written about 30 years ago, which just came out of the blue. I can't remember why I started writing it. It was just something that came to me. I was very used to channeling material every day when I channeled the 2 books that were published back in the 90s. So it may have been at that time that this just all came to me in the way it did. But what I wanted to do is bring this up to present, because I had no idea there was a community on YouTube that did readings. I had no idea you could see readings done. I'd never seen them. I'd only just started really going onto the YouTube channel to watch certain like people who discuss different subjects. Actually, that was what I did. So nothing ever came up in on my search. You know, when you open YouTube up, you get certain things they think you're going to like. Nothing like that ever came up because I never knew it existed. And this is in July, the end of July. I was really feeling a strong connection to my counterpart. And I may have been questioning why. But what actually happened was a message came through that I needed to contact him. And I thought, well, that's never going to happen. I'm never going to do that. How could I do that? And yet I was so aware that I've always responded to the messages that I was given. And suddenly I was watching actually Andrew Gold, who does some quite good things on cults, which I've always been interested in, how people get pulled into cults. And alongside his video was a reading, one of you tarot readers. I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh God, that's amazing. And then I started to watch that one. So then more and more started to come up on my search page. And then I realized there was this whole divine feminine masculine thing going on. And I thought, oh my God, this is the time for the reconnections with all of us. And I had had that feeling for the last few years, that we have to come together in that way, although I'd done nothing about it. But the strong message I had was that I have to contact my divine counterpart, which I did by going onto his Facebook page and messaging him. And I did not get a good response. And the response, I just couldn't believe it was him. This was a crazy thing, because the person responding back to me, and then I should not have been surprised. I have to laugh. This is 40 years on, but I'm still remembering the energetic connection I have with this person. So it was it was like a blast of, who do you think you are telling me this? But I was told really serious stuff, that this person really needed to be aware that there was very negative things going on around them, and they needed to be aware so that they could change what was happening, because it was quite dire. And I did what I needed to do, and then I got out of there. I think 5 messages each we did, something like that. And I knew that energy was just not for me. I had to leave. So it's really interesting. I'm not saying that's the end of the story. I actually don't feel it is, although I've had no contact with him. But I have a feeling that things are changing drastically for him somewhere along the line here. And I also feel like I have really strong telepathic connection with him now, and an energetic connection that I can feel. But what I'm trying to do here is give people an idea of what to expect and what goes on in these communications and these not so easy relationships that we're supposed to just ping, come together, get that right tone and the resonance happen. It does not happen like that all the time. I'm sure there are, and I'd love to hear if there are some wonderful stories of how easy it is. Because certainly the one I'm going through, it's made me feel more alive, more connected to my spiritual path. Crazy thing, really. But what I saw was that he had not awakened yet. That's what I got from the messages, the one message I got, and that he has the choice to do so. But for me, my path is even more illuminated. I would have to say it's actually enhanced my confidence, and I'm moving ahead. And I hope he does come forward again. He may do, he may not. But I cannot stop that or grieve that, because I know that we've had other lives together, and that there will be a reunion at some point. Maybe not in this lifetime, but it can be in this lifetime. I don't have any opinion about it, really. But I am interested to maybe open up the pathway for other divine feminines, divine masculines to come through. And let's hear your stories, because it helps everyone. And And maybe I'll leave it here for now, but I'm gonna, in that when I get this clearer, I'm thinking that a photocopy machine might bring these up darker, because I have this amazing song that was written, and it gives such a clear vision of the connections, and it's done not in that we're not connected, but it's actually written as if we are connected. But also the story of that connection is really interesting over what happened. So maybe I'll do a part 2 to I am one of the divine feminines that are, being spoken about right now. Anyway, I hope you enjoy, and this might open up for you some of the information about what goes on. And mine's a really drastic one, isn't it? I mean, it's 40 years. I haven't seen him for 40 years. And yet I feel like I have this strong telepathic connection with him on the 5th D level now. So weird and wonderful. That's what we're going to call it. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to my channel so that more people get to hear these messages that I put out, and especially the channeled messages. I would also just quickly like to add that whilst going through this wad of paperwork, I found 12 pages of the 3rd book that they asked me to channel, and I channeled 12 pages of this and put it away, because I really couldn't at that time resonate with what they were saying. But having looked at those 12 pages today, which are called "And Another Day Breaks," and this is the time after the changes, the main huge changes have happened, and yet the energies are still not totally integrated on the planet. Not totally. We're on the edges of that. And that I have 12 pages of amazing channeling from that, which I haven't read for 20 years. And I just found them today. In fact, I have a lot of stuff that I can now see why I put it in the bottom of the suitcase and brought it to Mexico with me. And I'm now going to start to read these channelings on really interesting subjects. I need to reread them myself first and then read them onto videos on here. So keep following, keep liking, keep subscribing. Thank you for listening.